I spent more than $30,000 on Apple products in 2023, and while some of them I regret buying, there's also a few that I'm pretty glad that I just completely skipped over without even buying in the first place. So in this video, I want to break down every new Apple product that was released this year. I want to talk about the products that I decided to keep and also the ones I decided to return, and just kind of give my overall thoughts, kind of like a re-review of a lot of these products here at the very end of 2023. And at the end of this video, I'm also going to rank my top 5 Apple products of 2023. So let's start with the first product that Apple released in 2023, and that was the M2 Pro and M2 Max MacBook Pros. So these were released via press release in early January, and this was basically the same as the M1 Pro and M1 Max MacBook Pros. There's really no difference aside from the chipset inside. So we did get better performance, of course, and honestly, in hindsight, looking back now on the M2 Pro and M2 Max MacBook Pros, there was only a 9-month gap between the M2 Pro and M3 Pro MacBook Pros. So a lot of people had some buyer's remorse, when they saw the M3 Pro and M3 Max come out just later in 2023. So I did get these. I did get both the M2 Pro and M2 Max. I did do a review on them. I tested them out, and I decided to return both of them because I currently have the M1 Max MacBook Pro back there. So none of them really, gave me much better performance over my M1 Max. So I just decided to return both of them. Then we got the M2 and M2 Pro Mac Mini. And as you've probably seen, my M2 Mac Mini is now a prop for my videos. So I kept it. I still have it just because I think it's an amazing device, an amazing value, but it's just a prop in the background of my videos now. I know, it's because I have the Mac Studio, but this thing is awesome. I mean, the bang for buck that you get out of the M2 Mac Mini is like, I usually recommend that to most people if they have an external display and they don't need a super crazy machine like a Mac Studio. Now, next up is perhaps the most controversial item on this list. And I say controversial in the sense that I think it's a lot better than most people. And I don't know why, because I use these every single day. So I feel like I have a good understanding of them. And that is the HomePod 2nd generation. So these were released as a follow-up to the 2019 HomePod. And these had a revamped speaker system. They had that faster S7 chip. They had the beamforming tweeters and also a heavy price tag. So these things are expensive. And the kicker is that you needed to have 2 of them to pair them together. You don't need to, but if you want the best audio quality, you need to pair them. And of course, to even enhance that more, you need an Apple TV. So that's another, close to $200. So you're spending a lot of money on this system from 2 HomePods and the Mac or in the Apple TV. But let me tell you, these replaced my $500 speaker that I had in there. I had a sound bar for my TV, and these 2 HomePods completely replaced it. So I bought these HomePods. Going into this, I was super skeptical. I was like, I'm not spending $300 per HomePod. That's ridiculous. But once I got them and I heard the audio quality, it sounded better than my $500 soundbar, and I was blown away. So I ended up keeping both HomePods. They're now paired in my main living room entertainment space down there, and I use them with my Apple TV, and I could not be any more satisfied. And then we got the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus in the yellow colorway a couple of months later. So this is just a new color. This is what Apple does every year now. They just release a new color for the current iPhone. So at the time, the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus were the latest iPhones. So I got this, I reviewed it. It was a cool color, yellow, but it's just not my vibe. It didn't really match with anything in my office. So I did have to return that. And then we had a little bit of a lull period after that new color iPhone in March because we didn't get anything until June at the Worldwide Developers Conference, which was a WWDC for the ages. It's perhaps the best WWDC of all time, in my opinion. And that is mostly because of the one more thing with the Apple Vision Pro, the most important announcement of 2023. So that did not get released this year, obviously, but it was a massive announcement. So I did just need to mention it. I cannot talk about 2023 in Apple without mentioning that. So it's coming in early 2024. And of course, I will be getting my hands on that. I will be reviewing it here on the channel. But anyways, at the Worldwide Developers Conference, we did get the new Mac Studio. So we got the M2 Max and the M2 Ultra Mac Studio. Now, this is the one product of 2023 that I regret not buying. So I regret not at least testing out the M2 Ultra or even the M2 Max, Mac Studio, because I currently have the M1 Ultra Mac Studio. as I mentioned earlier, and I just didn't really see any need to upgrade because I've had no issues with that thing. And also Mac Studio honestly just doesn't get views on YouTube either, so it'd really not be a great investment because, even if I did do a review, I probably wouldn't get views, it wouldn't pay for the product. So it just kind of didn't make sense for me to buy the Mac Studio this year, and especially given the fact that the M1 Ultra Mac Studio is still holding up extremely well. Really no issues still after a couple of years of hardcore usage every day. And then 2023 was also a huge year for this next product, which was the Mac Pro. So this was also released at the Worldwide Developers Conference, and this got silicon. It got Apple Silicon for the first time in a Mac Pro, and it completed, the cycle of getting silicon on every Apple product. So we finally completed that cycle, and this has the M2 Ultra chip in it with the PCIe expansion, and this thing is an absolute beast, but this was obviously a pass for me because it's $7,000, and my M1 Ultra, again, Mac Studio works just fine. So there's no need at all for me to get the Mac Pro, but if you're in a super professional environment, it makes a lot of sense. And the next product Apple released was perhaps my favorite. This is kind of a spoiler at my top 5 coming later, but perhaps my favorite Apple product of 2023, and it's the MacBook Air 15-inch. I never thought I would love a MacBook Air as much as I loved the 15-inch MacBook Air. I've been MacBook Pro my whole life. I've never used a MacBook Air as like my main, travel computer, but this MacBook Air, let me tell you, it is special. So this thing had the M2 chip inside, not even M3, it had the M2 chip, but it had that 15-inch display, and the fact that we have that midnight color, that nice dark color, it does get a lot of fingerprints on it, so I'm not a big fan of that, but it performs great. I'm talking still to this day, it performs great. It's super lightweight, no fan, big, beautiful display, amazing battery life. I mean, really, this 15-inch MacBook, and great price. Let me not forget, the price is the main reason, So yeah, the MacBook Air, I absolutely love that thing. I actually just gifted that MacBook to my dad, so I am currently without it right now, so I will be anxiously awaiting the M3 MacBook Air in 2024. I really hope that comes in 15-inch as well, which I'm sure it will. And then after the Worldwide Developers Conference in June, we went through another 3-month lull period until Apple's biggest month of the year, September. So of course we got the new iPhones, but before we talk about that, we do need to mention the AirPods Pro 2nd generation, because these, a lot of people might have forgotten that these got upgraded with the USB-C port in the bottom. So there's nothing different. These are the same AirPods Pro 2, but just with a USB-C port on the bottom instead of Lightning. So I bought these, I tested them out, and I decided to return them because I just realized that 99.9% of the time I use wireless charging for my AirPods. I don't wired charge them at all. Like, I think I may have done it like one time since I got them, and it was just to test out the USB-C port. So that's when I realized, and I don't know why I didn't think about it before, but that's when I realized that I do not wired charge my AirPods. I always wirelessly charge my AirPods. And then came the Apple Watch Ultra 2, which is what's currently on my wrist right now. I wear this thing every single day religiously. I also go to sleep with it to track my sleep. So I love the Apple Watch Ultra 2. And I had to buy this because the Apple Watch Ultra 1 just blew it out of the park. It was my favorite Apple product in a very long time. So I use that thing every day. So it was a no-brainer to upgrade to the Apple Watch Ultra 2, which just has a better chipset inside, a brighter display, and that's really it. Overall, it's the pretty much exact same, not pretty much, it is the exact same design as the Apple Watch Ultra 1. So that's why a lot of people probably didn't upgrade, just because there wasn't a huge difference. But when it's something I use personally every single day, I'm going to upgrade that year over year, just because it's such an important part of my life. And then of course, alongside the Apple Watch Ultra 2, we did get the Apple Watch Series 9. So just like the Apple Watch Ultra 2, really the only difference from the Series 8 and the Series 9 was the better chip and also the brighter display. That was pretty much it. Like, you may have seen better battery life. Some people are saying they get better battery life, but for me, it was pretty much the same as the Series 8. So I do have that. I did decide to keep the Series 9, but it's just going to be collecting dust because I'm going to always wear the Ultra over the Series 9. And by the way, when I say it's collecting dust, I don't mean like always collecting dust. Like I do still use some of these products that I don't use every day for comparisons. So you'll see me in the future compare the Series 9 to maybe like the Series 10 or the Series 11, whatever it ends up being. That's the case for a lot of these products that I don't use every day. And we'll talk about that when we get to the iPhone section, but a lot of them, I just keep so I can do comparisons in future years. And then of course, the star of the show were the iPhone 15 series. So first off, let's talk about the iPhone 15 and the iPhone 15 Plus. So I actually used the regular iPhone 15 for a while when I first got these because I was super blown away by the value proposition of the iPhone 15 this year. I think it's the first year ever, and I said this in my recent review, it's the first year ever I can remember where I've recommended the base model iPhone over the Pro for the majority of people. I was that impressed with it because the display was pretty much the same as the Pro. It is pretty much the same display as the Pro, just minus the 120 hertz refresh rate. And also the 48 megapixel camera on the back is amazing. So, the regular iPhone 15 is just a great value this year. And also the Pro and Pro Max were great as well, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But we have to give some recognition to the most underrated phone, ever since it got released, and that is the plus size phone. The iPhone 15 Plus is the battery king. This thing just dominates. If you watch any battery test video here on YouTube, and even when I use this thing here in the studio, I never used it as my main device, but that thing stayed alive so long. It's crazy how good the battery life is on the 15 Plus. So if you only care about battery life, that's your number one thing, the 15 Plus is by far the best out of all of them. So of course I got the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus in all of the colors, but I decided to keep the iPhone 15 in green. I absolutely love that green. That is still my favorite color hands down for the iPhone 15 series. And then I kept the iPhone 15 Plus in pink because this was the first year we have a legit pink phone, in my opinion, ever since the 6S. I think the 6S was the last real pink iPhone we've had. And then we have the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, and this year was different. This was also a big first for me, and it's the fact that I actually am still using right now, the Pro Max over the Pro. So the first time, I believe, since the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max, I'm using the Pro Max over the Pro, and that's because the big thing this year for the iPhone 15 Pro series was titanium. Titanium replaced the stainless steel. That was a huge deal. You saw all over the Apple stores this year where it said titanium. It was in their advertisement. That was the big, buzzword this year for Apple, was titanium. And it wasn't really, just all hype. It actually made a big difference in the weight savings. So that's the reason I'm using the Pro Max over the Pro this year, is simply because it actually doesn't weigh a ton. It's not a brick in my pocket anymore. It actually feels manageable in my pocket and also in the hand. I don't get fatigued as easily. So the Pro Max this year has been awesome just for that alone, but also for the fact that we have the 5X tetraprism camera. The telephoto camera is better on the Pro Max than on the Pro. And so this makes for even better portrait shots. It's when you do those portrait shots, they're going to look much better than they do even on the 15 Pro, I've noticed. So yeah, the Pro Max this year has just been my favorite. So I decided to keep the Pro Max in the natural titanium color, and I kept the 15 Pro, the regular Pro, in the white titanium. So I went light mode this year on the Pro iPhones, where I normally go dark mode. So it was a lot different this year, pretty much across the board for the iPhones. So after all of that craziness, we had perhaps the weirdest product launch from Apple in 2023, and that was the Apple Pencil, the cheap Apple Pencil, or as Apple calls it, Apple Pencil USB-C. So this is the cheapest Apple Pencil they sell at $79. So this, I did buy it just to test it out. It's pretty much the same as the others, but it is missing some vital features. We do have that USB-C charging port at least. But yeah, this thing is mainly just for people who have the entry-level iPad, especially if you have kids or something like that. This is a great pencil to get for them, but it's lacking a lot of the main functions that you would want, like the touch sensitivity and things like that. So I had to return this just because I didn't find a use for it. I already have my main Apple Pencil, the top of the line Apple Pencil that I use for my iPad Pro. So I returned it, but it's still a great product for, those looking for a cheap Apple Pencil. But when this got released, it was so confusing. Like there were memes everywhere on Twitter. Like there were so many memes about this Apple Pencil, and it was just, everybody was just baffled by it. It was pretty funny. It took a while to understand why Apple released it, but it was just a funny release. And then came the final Apple event of 2023, and this was just right before Halloween. This was in a kind of a dark mode themed Apple event called Scary Fast. So at this event, we saw the 24-inch M3 iMac get announced. So these are, basically the same as the M1 iMac. Pretty much every single thing is the same except for the internals. So the colors are the same, the exterior is the same, everything's the same except for that M3 chip inside now versus the M1 chip that we saw back in 2021. So a decent difference in performance. I honestly wasn't as impressed with the, the gaming performance specifically. So I thought gaming performance would be much better since we do have M3 now, which has the hardware accelerated ray tracing, but gaming wasn't really that great, honestly, on the iPad or on the iMac. I still have mine sitting right here. I am keeping mine in silver, but I just wasn't super impressed with the iMac, but at the same time, it's an iconic machine. I love the iMac. I will always have an iMac in my life, even if it's just somewhere, in, my office or a spare room or whatever. I love the iMac. It is great for people who aren't super, intensive with their work. They don't need like a Mac Studio or something like that, but I ended up buying the base model iMac and also the mid-tier level iMac, and I decided to keep the mid-tier because of the extra USB-C ports on the back and things like that. And also I just love the silver. So I got the green and the silver. I decided to return the green and keep the silver. I did also just do a review recently on that iMac as well. If you want to go into more detail on that, I'll leave a link down in the description below. And then we got the 14-inch and 16-inch M3, M3 Pro, and M3 Max MacBook Pros. So the base model M3 was basically going to replace the Touch Bar MacBook Pro. So if you guys remember the Touch Bar MacBook Pro that was super controversial, basically this new entry-level M3 MacBook Pro replaced that. And then the M3 Pro and M3 Max replaced the MacBook Pros that were released early in the year in January, which we talked about at the top of this video. So these were cool, and this was also super controversial, mainly for the fact that the M3 MacBook Pro came with 8 gigabytes of RAM. So that was super controversial. Everybody was talking about that. I still feel like 8 gigabytes of RAM is enough when you're buying an entry-level machine. I've talked about that ad nauseum at this point, but nonetheless, the space black color is new, but you do need to get the M3 Pro or M3 Max chips for that. So you can't just get the M3 and get the new space black color. So that, along with the fact that the M3 Pros had more than double the RAM, made the M3 Pro the more popular choice, and that's actually the one I ended up keeping. So I bought the M3, M3 Pro, and M3 Max, and I decided to keep the M3 Pro MacBook Pro in space black. So just the entry-level M3 MacBook Pro with the 18 gigs of RAM. And I'm happy with it. The space black I think is way better than Midnight because first off, it's actually a real black. Midnight's more of like a dark blue, but this space black is like a real black, and also you don't see near as many fingerprints as you do on the MacBook Air. And by the way, that's the 14-inch M3 Pro MacBook Pro that I'm keeping. I tried to give the 16-inch another chance. I really did. I really want to like the 16-inch, but I just can't. I mean, it weighs a ton. I cannot travel with a 16-inch MacBook Pro and take it serious. It's just too heavy on my back. It's too big to sit in the tray on the airplanes. Like, I just don't like it. I need 14-inch, and that's the max I will do for a travel laptop. And the reality is, if I don't sell this M1 Max now, it's probably going to lose even more value, in 2024. So I may as well sell it while I have the M3 Pro now to kind of replace it. So that was everything Apple released in 2023. And you might have noticed that there were no iPads. Yes, so for the first time in the history of the iPad, we did not see a single new iPad in the year of 2023. That is crazy. First time it's ever happened. So that means that 2024 is going to be jam-packed with iPad refreshes. And some of them are probably going to be pretty large, especially for the iPad Air and iPad Pro. So 2024, get ready for new iPads. Okay, so now my top 5 Apple products of 2023. Starting with number 5, the HomePod 2nd generation. As I said, I use these daily. They are my main speaker setup downstairs with my big entertainment room setup with the Apple TV. Amazing. Love the HomePods, especially when you have them paired together. My number 4 favorite Apple product of 2023 is going to be my desk prop my M2 Pro Mac Mini. So the M2 and M2 Pro Mac Mini is going to be my fourth favorite product of 2023. I think it's just an excellent value for what you get. Number 3 is the M3 Pro MacBook Pro, more specifically the Space Black M3 Pro MacBook Pro in 14 inches. Number 2 is the iPhone 15 series. I'm just gonna give it to all the iPhone 15s because they were all pretty impressive this year, minus the base model iPhone 15 Pro. I feel like that's the only one that wasn't really a home run this year, in my opinion. I think the 15 and the 15 Plus were amazing for different reasons. The 15 was just an excellent value for what you got. The 15 Plus was just incredible battery life like we've never seen. And then the 15 Pro Max had the new tetraprism camera with that 5x optical zoom. It weighed, much less than it has previously for the Pro Max because it was made of titanium. But then we had the Pro right there, which is kind of just, it wasn't a bad buy, but it wasn't as good as the others. So if I had to choose 2 of them here, I'm going to choose the iPhone 15 Plus and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And then my favorite Apple product of 2023 has got to be the 15-inch MacBook Air M2. This thing is the most versatile MacBook that I think Apple has ever made. I mean, we have the big screen, it's powerful, amazing battery life, it weighs nothing, there's no fans inside. I mean, it's just the perfect travel companion, in my opinion, and I absolutely love the 15-inch MacBook Air. And then just an honorable mention for the Apple Vision Pro headset. That was announced in 2023, but it's gonna be released in 2024. But I did just wanna mention it as an honorable mention here, just because that will undoubtedly be the #1 product in 2024. Even if it's not, #1 personal for me, it's gonna be the biggest, it's gonna be #1 in terms of impact that it has on the tech industry and just the impact it has on Apple's legacy. Like, you just can't deny it. No matter the price tag, everything else aside, just looking at it, just tech for tech, it's gonna change the game for Apple, in my opinion. So there you have it, guys. That is what I spent tens of thousands of dollars on this year in terms of Apple products, and of course also what my favorite Apple products were of 2023. So if you guys enjoyed this video, it's my first time doing this, so I would appreciate if you could give me some feedback if you liked it, how I can make this video better, maybe give me some ideas for how to make this better. Just let me know your thoughts in the comments. And of course, if you did enjoy it, I would also appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. It helps me understand if you guys like the videos and want me to keep doing them like this or not. But anyways, guys, thanks for a great 2023. I really, truly appreciate your support, and I will see you guys in 2024.